Go woke, go broke. Yes, our NHS, the envy of the world, clap at 8 p.m. on Thursdays, are going bankrupt, certain NHS trusts, but it's okay, they still have enough money to pay for diversity programs and paint rainbow flags everywhere. This is about what's going on in South London, in Bromley, almost Kent basically, Princess Royal University Hospital. Now, this is part of the King's College Hospital NHS Foundation Trust, and it's not looking too good. Do you know what they've done? So, in order to modernize the hospital, initially they built this bridge to link the buildings, right? And then they painted this monstrosity on the building to celebrate Pride Month. Well, okay, on taxpayers' money. Yeah, how lovely. It looks terrible, by the way. But this apparently is a priority right now compared to everything else that's happening inside the NHS, instead of actually treating the people who are the patients of the NHS. It's absolutely fascinating. Now, this hospital, Princess Royal University Hospital, as I said, are under the King's College Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. Now, this trust running this Bromley Hospital has a debt of £191 million. This was the latest figures. It's actually gone above that. The biggest debt of any foundation trust in NHS history. Now, this is just one example. Across the country, there are a number of other NHS trusts in trouble because of mismanagement. And the problem here is they get a lot of money from the government, right? So a lot of pressure is on government ministers. And government ministers, they say, well, they go to them, they say, can you give us more money? So the general public and the mainstream media think that the ministers and the health secretary runs the NHS. They don't run the NHS. You got the head of the NHS and the management and the executives, they run the NHS. So what happens is government department, they give a lump sum money on a regular basis to the NHS, but they're not in charge of running it or spending it. What happens is Steve Barclay is now furious because he's giving taxpayers' money, more money to the NHS, but the money is not being spent. So then the lefties can't say, well, we don't have enough money. Give us more money, right? Because you're not spending it properly. You're wasting it. So he's come out to say this government is investing record funds in the NHS, including the £6.6 billion extra over the next 2 years announced in the autumn statement. Taxpayers want to see that cash used for cutting waiting lists and caring for patients, not wasted on virtue signaling vanity projects. The problem is, I'm not a fan of this government at all, or just generally speaking, any government. But when they don't spend the money properly, when they don't cut the waiting list, who's going to get the attacks? Yeah, it will be the health secretary and the prime minister. And again, to clarify, I'm not a fan of the prime minister or the cabinet. But they get the blame. But they're not in charge of cutting the waiting list. It's a chaotic system. So we have Dr. Joe Williams, who's a doctor who has differences in sex development, told the Telegraph that this whole thing was merely tokenism and photo opportunities. She said, adding a letter or symbol that groups together over 40 different and complex variations of sex development under the term intersex, which most people living with these complex conditions do not like, does more to erase their needs than it does to offer genuine inclusion. Dr. Louise Irvin, a GP and a member of the Clinical Advisory Network on Sex and Gender, a group of NHS staff opposed to gender ideology, said that the whole thing was inappropriate to put this flag on an NHS hospital, and it is easily interpreted as the NHS supporting irreversible medical and surgical treatments for body modifications. So that's the other opposition to it. It's not just because it's just woke or waste of money. It's the fact that anything that's a public funding, it's got that behind it. So state bodies, state schools and hospitals and any group or universities, you shouldn't really decide on behalf of the public using their money, people's money, to do political things. And I'm fascinated how we are so behind times in this country, because this sort of debate is already normalized in places like America. In America, generally speaking, people with common sense oppose using government bodies or government institutions to do woke things on behalf of the public. So even some liberals who are wokey, they say if it's a private business, corporation, or an independent school or a private hospital, they can do whatever they want with their money. We can still criticize them because they're woke, but it's their freedom. It's an independent body. But having a government body to do political stuff, it's bad. It goes against our values. But yeah, apparently it's still normal here to have got public bodies, including the police, to go full on woke and political. And if you criticize it, you are the villain. Anyway, let me know what you think about this story. And if you have any other story about where you live and NHS hospitals and trusts, any chaotic stories, let me know in the comment section. I'm Mahyar Tousi, and we are the media.